ERM or Enterprise Risk Management. Components of Enterprise Risk Management: Information communication and reporting. Communication is a continual iterative process of obtaining information and sharing it throughout the entity. Management uses relevant information from both internal and external sources to support enterprise risk management. So these help the to gather the information and disseminate to use this relevant information from both external and internal sources for the organization. Benefits of internal risk management: increases the range of opportunities by assessing the positive and negative element of risk. So this expand the range of possibilities by determining the benefit and the drawbacks of risk. Then next is increases positive outcomes and advantage while reducing negative surprises. So this enhances favorable results and benefits while minimizing negative surprises. Next is to identify and manages entity-wide risk. So identify and control the risk of the organization. Next is reduces performance variability, lower the unpredictability of the performance. And last is improve resource deployment or enhances enhances resource location. Next is the event identification under ERM. Number one is risk identification begins with establishing a risk inventory of existing new and emerging risk. So, in event of the identification under the ERM, a new emerging risk as well as assess risk is first is to first move is to establish a risk inventory on a current, new and developing risk. Risk identification processes are governed by a speed with which risks are developed. So rate a risk from govern rate a risk arise govern from the risk identification technique. The next is the rapidly developing or changing risk environments require most rigorous attention. So a risk setting rapidly involve demand greater attention. Then assessing and risk profile or assessing the profile. Risk identification approach includes 1. The cognitive computation, a large volumes of data collected and analyzed to detect future and trends on meaningful insights into new and emerging risks as well as the changes in existing risks. So this means that if a vast amount of data collected to detect the future insight in improve and for the upcoming situation. The next is the data capture. Databases developed and maintained by third-party services providers or through industry consortiums that collect informations on incident and losses incurred by industry or region may inform the organization of potential risks. So these create and manage by providing a third-party services. The next is the interview, surveying large group of people to seek knowledge on current and past events. So gathered information. Then key indicators, qualitative measures or quantitative measures that assist in identifying changes to existing risks. So a indicators help to identify either quality or quantity indicator for changes in current hazards. So a process analysis is a process to better understand the interrelationship to the risk and assess for the important business goals. The next is the workshops, bringing together individuals from different functions and levels to draw on the group collective knowledge for the purpose of developing a list or risk as they relate to the organization's strategy and business objectives. So, a workshop is to generate a list hazard for the business strategy and commercial goals. The next is risk severity assessment. These assess at multiple levels in line with business objectives. So, these evaluate the risk based on the resources and capability of the entity. Next is the risk prioritization. Risk the result in the entity approaching the risk appetite for the specific business objectives are given higher priority. These prioritize the business objective goals. Next is the risk appetite. This represents the types and amounts of the risk on a broad level that an organization is willing to accept and preserve value. Varies between product business units and over time in line with changing capabilities for managing risk. So risk appetite is ready to accept the value of wide level or adapting a changing business situation. And last is relationship of value and risk appetite. Managing risk within the risk appetite enhances an organization's ability to create, preserve, and realize the value. So this means that the risk of organizations that willing to take and pursue the objectives it deem to have value.
Corporate governance. Under corporate governance, there are board-level committees. Board-level committees are Audit Committee, Risk Committee, Compensation Committee, Nomination and Governance Committee. First, Audit Committee. They provide oversight of the financial reporting process, the audit process, the company system of internal controls, and compliance with laws and regulations. Risk Committee establishes direct oversight of ERM, reviewing the non-financial areas of organizations' operations beyond the scope of the Audit Committee review. Compensation Committee reviews executive compensation arrangements to ensure executives are motivated to achieve objectives without undue risk. Nomination and Governance Committee provide oversight of the selection of candidates for directors and management, including executive succession planning to reduce variability and risk. Lines of accountability. Management is responsible for managing performance and risk taken to achieve strategic and business objectives. Accountability lies with ultimate person looking after a result. For example, multiple salespeople are responsible for driving business, but sales manager is ultimately accountable for hitting the final revenue figure. Risk analytics. Common analytics uses in ERM include earnings at risk or value at risk associated with different strategic alternatives or degrees of strategic implementation. Risk analytics is a set of techniques that measures, quantifies, and predicts risk with a large degree of accuracy. Risk portfolio management. Residual risk is the entity-wide portfolio view of risk that the entity faces after responding to known the risk. The CFO may view risk from a financial perspective, while operating officers may look at operational performance. Performance management require risk identifications, assessment of risk severity, prioritization of risk, implementation of risk responses, and development of a portfolio view. Internal controls. Management design control to ensure that ERM principles are applied and that objectives are achieved. Lastly, applying the ERM is the process of identifying and addressing methodically the potential events that represent risk.